This is Home Value Stories. I'm Jamie Owen. This is a podcast that is designed to educate you, the consumer, on things related to real estate and real property valuation. You're also listening to the least listened to appraisal podcast in America. The reason is because I have not been podcasting in months. It's been a crazy busy time. And so I'm so happy to be back with you today. But I did really miss podcasting. I've missed sitting down and being here with you. So thank you for joining me again today to talk about real estate valuation and real property valuation. I hope that you and your family are doing good, at least as good as can be expected, and all the different difficulties that each person faces. Everyone has their own challenge right now, but hopefully you're hanging in there. Today I wanted to visit with you about the point at which an appraiser knows their opinion of the market value of a property. Last year, a local bank that I work for and have worked for many years called me and said that they had assigned an appraisal to an appraiser for a condominium and that this was for a purchase. The appraiser pulled some sales in the neighborhood, and all of the sales that they looked at sold for considerably less than the purchase price of the property to be appraised. Well, the appraiser was afraid of completing an appraisal in which their opinion of value is lower than the contract price. And so they rejected that assignment after having accepted it initially. Well, the bank told me that they didn't care where the appraised value comes in at. What they need is a supportable appraisal to make a sound lending decision. So they asked me if I would take this one on. Well, did I take on this assignment? I'll talk about that in the podcast today. This is not the first time a bank has called me and asked me to take on an appraisal that another appraiser turned down for a similar reason. Because they pulled some sales and it didn't look like those sales supported the purchase price. Now, every time I receive an order like that from a bank, the first question that goes through my mind is, how could the appraiser really know what the market value is without going through the entire process? After all, isn't that what we get paid to do? Now, I don't want to disparage that appraiser for turning down that assignment. I've turned down assignments that I didn't feel comfortable with. It's not about value usually, but there might be something about that assignment that I don't feel comfortable with. So this podcast is not to disparage the appraiser for doing that. But really, this situation does beg the question, which comes first? Now, before I finish that question, you might be thinking the chicken or the egg, or at least that may be what came to your mind. So before we get into talking about the valuation process, let's talk about which came first, the chicken or the egg. To answer the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg, I went to the all-knowing Wikipedia for the answer. And this is what it said. The chicken or the egg causality dilemma is commonly stated as the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The dilemma stems from the observation that all chickens hatch from eggs, and all chicken eggs are laid by chickens. Chicken and egg is a metaphoric adjective describing situations where it is not clear which of two events should be considered the cause and which should be considered the effect, to express a scenario of infinite regress, or to express the difficulty of sequencing actions where each seems to depend on others being done first. Plutarch posed the question as a philosophical matter in his essay, The Symposiacs, written in the 1st century CE. Well, I cleared it up. The answer is clear. And that's a minute of our lives that we'll never get back. So for that, I apologize. But really, if you think about it, the answer to the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg, really is fairly simple. You see, the correct answer is that chickens, plural, came first. You see, for another chicken to come into existence, you need to have a hen and a rooster. Now, I'm not going to go any deeper than that on this podcast, but I think that you get the point. Well, we've got that part of which came first covered. Chicken? Whiskey, get away from that microphone. I apologize. That was our chocolate lab Whiskey. She just busted into my studio, and she thinks she's Scooby. Anyway, let's take a little break, and then we'll get back to the more serious question of which comes first when it comes to developing an opinion of value. Home Value Stories is supported by FindMyAppraiser.com. FindMyAppraiser.com is a network of trusted, knowledgeable local appraisers dedicated to delivering accurate, quality valuations for your home or business. If you're looking for an excellent appraiser in your area, go to FindMyAppraiser.com. They have the best appraisers. So let's get into the question, which comes first in an appraisal? The opinion of value or the analysis? I can tell you that in every report, my opinion of the market value of the property I'm appraising is the last thing I put in the report just before signing it. So in the situation in the introduction with the bank, they need an appraisal. Whether it's above or below the contract, they need the appraisal to make a lending decision. I took on this assignment, and I usually do in these situations. So what did I find? Well, first of all, I inspected the property, and part of that inspection includes measuring it. Well, guess what? It was larger than the MLS and the public records showed. It had also been recently renovated. Then I looked at the condo sales in the neighborhood that sold in a year of the effective date of that appraisal. And it's true that there were no condos that were selling at the same price as the subject property was under contract for. In fact, I searched the whole city, and there really wasn't anything within the last year that supported the contract price. However, all of the condo sales that had sold in the city where the subject was located, they were all in a different development. In fact, there had been no sales of condominiums within the subject development within the past year. It was a relatively small development. Furthermore, the quality of construction of the condominiums in the other development was considerably inferior to that of the subject property and units in the subject development. And so really, there were no truly comparable condo sales that had sold in the subject city within the past year. So what did I do? Well, first of all, I went back 2 years to see if I could find something that was truly comparable. And you know what? I found a couple of very good comparable sales that actually sold for more than the subject's contract price. So you can be sure that I used them in my report. Now, since this was a Fannie Mae loan, I had to provide additional sales that had sold within the last year as my sales 1 through 3. So I did search for condominiums that were really comparable in terms of quality of construction and condition, market appeal, that had sold in comparable competing neighborhoods in the area that had sold within the last year. And I was able to find some very comparable condominium sales in nearby competing markets, and they all supported the same price that the other condominiums within the subject neighborhood were selling for. So when I did all of my research my opinion of the property's market value was slightly more than the contract price. But I would not have known that without doing the work. And by the way, when I say do the work, I'm not saying do the work to hit a purchase price. That would be wrong. We don't do that. But we do have to do the work to make sure that our opinion of value is supported by the market. So I wasn't working hard to hit a contract price. I was really doing my work to make sure that my opinion of value really was reflective of the market. As I mentioned before, the bank was not concerned about whether the appraised value was higher or lower than the contract price. They just wanted a solid report to be able to base their lending decisions on. And in this case, in my opinion, the market value is a little higher than the purchase price. Now, that doesn't always happen. Let me give you another example of something that just happened, another scenario. I was given an appraisal order for a purchase. This property was listed in the MLS as having 1,440 square feet of gross living area, 1,440 square feet of above grade finished square footage, 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. When I inspected the property, I measured it. It was a colonial-style dwelling with only 960 square feet of finished above-grade living area. And it only had 2 above-grade bedrooms and only 1 above-grade bathroom. The reported 3rd bedroom and 2nd bathroom were in the basement. Now, if the subject really had what the MLS said that it had in terms of gross living area, and if it really was a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, then the purchase price would have been in harmony with market value. I found other very similar colonial-style dwellings with very similar square footage, around 1,400 square feet, that were selling at around the price that the subject was being sold for, but not in the category of 960 square feet. I did find some very comparable sales on the same street, very comparable conditions, room count, you name it. And they supported something less than the contract price. So as you might imagine, my opinion of value was under the purchase price. But again, I would not have known that without doing my research, because on paper, everything looked great. But when I did the research, I came to a different conclusion. Now, let's just add a little insult to injury. I hate to pick on Zillow, but I do a lot, especially in my blogs. I took a look at Zillow, just for fun, just to see what it said about the subject property, the property that I was appraising. Of course, its Zestimate was exactly what the property was listed at, price-wise. Interestingly, it also reflected the subject as having 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, like the MLS reflected. Even worse, though, it reflected a square footage of 1,800 square feet. Why? It's because Zillow will add the finished basement square footage to the reported square footage of the property in the multiple listing service. And since the listing agent included the finished basement in their gross living area in their listing, then Zillow tacked on more square footage to that so that they're reflecting a square footage that was even higher than the 1,400 square feet, making Zillow's Zestimate inaccurate. Well, there are a couple of lessons that we can learn from these 2 examples. There is a process that appraisers go through, with our opinion of market value being the last part of that process, because our opinion is developed. We don't just derive a number and try to back into it. We don't try to support the purchase price. If the market value supports the purchase price, fantastic. But if it doesn't, well, it doesn't. So if you're having a home appraised, the appraiser is not going to know the market value of the home after the inspection is made. And a lot of homeowners, well-intentioned homeowners, they ask me, well, what do you think? And I have to do one of 2 things. If they are my client, well, then I have to explain to them that I really still have no idea what the market value is going to be until I do all of my work, which is the absolute truth. of course, if they're not my client, if this is an appraisal that is completed for a bank, then I have to explain to them that, well, I can't share really anything about my findings with them. But an appraisal takes a lot of research and analysis in making our determination. Another thing that we can take away from the situation is to never trust a Zestimate. What would I call a Zestimate? I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh. But I think if I could put it into a word, I would say the Zestimates are an abomination. Is that too harsh? I don't think so. But then again, I'm an appraiser, so some may feel otherwise. Well, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for not giving up on listening to my show. I am working on future episodes for you. In the meantime, hang in there. There are better times ahead, and so keep hope alive. If you're looking for a happy and upbeat appraiser in Northeast Ohio, look me up. You can find me online at one of two websites, AspenAppraisalServices.net or the ClevelandAppraisalBlog.com. And if you're looking for an appraiser somewhere other than Northeast Ohio, go to FindMyAppraiser.com. They have the best appraisers. And now, to finish this episode, I'd like to give you a couple of dad jokes. As a lumberjack, I know that I've cut exactly 2,020 trees. I know because every time I cut one down, I keep a log. Okay, just one more. I wouldn't buy anything with Velcro. It's a total ripoff. I know these are painful, but like ripping a Band-Aid off of a hairy arm, the pain is momentary and light. And your kids and grandkids are gonna love these. My best to you all. I look forward to talking to you again soon.